This handout, we're looking at how incentives affect decision making in some businesses. And the first one here is showing a chart of the corporate income taxes that different countries charge. Before Donald Trump became president of the United States had a 35% corporate income tax, which means once a corporation figured out how much profits they made for the year, they had to pay 35% of that to the government. If you look at this chart, China's was 20, or is now currently 25%, France is 32%, Mexico 30%, Russia 20%, Saudi Arabia 20%, Singapore 17%, Thailand 20%, Taiwan 20%, and Vietnam 20%. So when you compare the United States at 35% to all these other countries, there was definitely an incentive for business owners who were wanting to start some sort of corporation to actually take and start those in other countries, because obviously if you make a certain amount of money, you would rather pay a lower percentage towards the government than you would a higher percentage. So currently, the United States corporate income tax level is 21%, and Donald Trump did that understanding how incentives can affect people's decision making. And so his team decided that if we lower that, that would give an incentive for businesses to come back to the United States. And if businesses come back, obviously they have to hire people, and then unemployment goes down. Joe Biden has said that when he becomes president, he will take and raise that back up to 28%. So if you look at the different countries, 28% compared to China, Singapore, Thailand, Taiwan, Vietnam, all of those are usually places that we see when we look at, especially clothing. When you look at where all these things are made, their corporate income taxes are lower. So based on the information above, explain the incentives some U.S. businesses have to move back to the United States when Trump became president. So obviously the answer for the Trump one is there is an incentive for businesses to move back to the United States because of that decrease in the corporate income tax. When Joe Biden raises it to 28%, once again, it's going to give some of these businesses, not all of them, but some of them will have an incentive to take. And if you're an already established business, you might move, or if you're an incoming and trying to determine where you want to start a business, you might want to do that in another country just because you would get to keep more profits. Next thing, the United States government is thinking about raising the national minimum wage to $15. Explain how this would impact or incentivize business owners in terms of the number of workers they will hire and the price they will charge for their product. Excuse me. About 80% of all businesses are sole proprietorships, so they're very small businesses, and they're not making huge amounts of profits to begin with. And so especially when we start to get into supply and demand and we start drawing the graphs, you'll see that as a business owner, if you have to go from $7.25 to $15 an hour, the number of workers that you might be able to hire is probably going to go down if you're on that very tight profit margin, not making enough or not making very much profit to begin with. So the number of workers is actually going to go down. So by increasing that minimum wage, we're going to see an increase in unemployment. Overall prices, obviously, if you have to pay all of your workers more, the overall price of everything is going to go up. So what you're going to see is those people who get to stay in their jobs are obviously going to make some more money, but we're going to see a lot more people who are unemployed, and now you're unemployed and the price of everything is going to have to go up in order to offset that extra amount of money that you have to pay your workers. And then the last one here, explain how a change in interest rates can influence savings, investing, and buying. Savings accounts right now, the interest rates are almost zero. So if you put money in the bank in a savings account, you're not going to make any money off of that. The reason people invest in stocks and bonds is because there is a far greater chance to make money by putting it in the stock market when interest rates are low. So when interest rates are low, people don't put money in a savings account. They actually put more money in stocks and bonds and those sorts of investments. And then buying when interest rates are low, obviously you have to pay the principal back plus the interest. So when interest rates are relatively low, there's more of an incentive to buy. So once again, when interest rates are low, there's not much of an incentive to put money in a savings account, but there is a greater incentive to put money into the stock market or invest in bonds, and there's more of an incentive to buy things. When interest rates are high, if the government wants people to stop spending their money, they raise interest rates. And so if you put money in the bank and now you're making 2% or 3% or 4% guaranteed, that looks a lot better than if you are investing money in the stock market where you could actually lose it. So when interest rates go up, people put more money in the savings account. There's less incentive to put it into investments where you might lose some money, and there's less incentive to buy things.